All right, that's week 7 of ScorCast. Thank you all for joining us today. We have it's me and Alex, and we actually have an addition. In addition to the two, it's a third, and I'd like all of us to welcome John. John, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day today for joining us this cast. We're actually very pleased to have you on here. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to a very interesting conversation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as we move on now from this now began episode, I'd like Alex to take it away from the beginning, starting off with a bit of Tesla things and enhanced AI.
Well, yeah, this week there has been a lot of developments, including Elon Musk's FSD deployment on the Tesla. We have version 13.28, which basically has very accurate obstacles detection and one of the smoothest driving that I've ever seen. It's trending right now on YouTube. You should check it out if you have time. But FSD should be the number one driving technology in the world right now. I enhance and I basically emphasize that on all car manufacturers. Because then, in all aspects, if you look at the importance of reducing accidents and just more emphasizing on human safety and efficiency as well, FSD just solves that problem. I witnessed a lot of iterations that Tesla pushed through, in which one of them had issues with detecting snowy roads and muddy roads. And yeah, I believe we hinted this up with Habishek on the previous episode that we kind of need to bring FSD to Tanzania and test it out in the real terrain. You know how rough it is. But yeah, they managed to pull it off. I mean, right now it's smooth driving, smooth sailing. I don't know about cross country yet, but I'm really excited to see the future of FSD.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I'd definitely agree, man. Especially on the point of having that tech reach our roads. It's going to be an extremely entirely brand new, variation of data altogether. I mean, I would even go as far
Yeah.
as to say we don't even have roads. So shit, if your car can make a road, damn, I guess, already on a good start,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very streamlining because evidently, again, you're automating transportation, and we're still building on the key point of automative living, right? So I believe John will agree with me on this. Automation is just part of an architecture that's self-driving. So yeah.
Yeah, it's part of our extended self. I mean, I'm trained as a designer, and in all of these, in my formation as a designer, we look a lot at human-centeredness and the psychology and all the theory, anthropological and sociological theory that informs the designs, and this is absolutely a part of the extended self, right? It's a part of ourselves that we are augmenting, and it's
Yeah.
allowing us to sort of do what we would like to do more efficiently, quicker,
Yeah.
and in a more personalized way, because we're learning from it, it's learning from us, and it's this constant feedback.
Yeah, yeah. Referencing Elon Musk's, I think a year ago podcast on Live Friedman, he mentioned something peculiar on photons in controls out concept, which is exactly what's driving Tesla's FSD innovative technology. Our brains, and I quote from what he specified, is that we see, we learn, and we output controls, or we output, let's say, applicability in anything. So in that case, artificial intelligence plus reinforcement learning kind of achieves that autonomously. And it's a great aspect to have right now.
It's very, very interesting. No, the entirety, the entire idea of just automating everything, or from food delivery to the blinds opening today morning to Google reading you the weather when you do wake up. Everything about our lives now is, really come together a lot more cohesively. We can
Yeah.
honestly like wake up and do an entire streamlined section of things that we needed to think about and do manually before. It's
Mm-hmm.
only going to get easier, as they say from here. Well, at least hopefully they say that, because I mean, usually they say it's only going to get harder from here. And it's true for both sides of the coins, right? The people that are making this tech and the people that are using this tech, and the people that haven't really caught on to this tech and think that it's going to take us far, because they prefer the entire ordeal of doing everything yourself and keeping yourself still in value somehow.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
feel like on both sides of these coins, I feel like this tech is very useful. Much like anything else that we came up with in the past years. I'd even take it as far as beginning with food delivery. I think that was a very interesting
Mm-hmm.
thing. Then it came to rides. So
Mm-hmm.
with yeah, so honestly, the future of urban mobility hasn't been looking a lot more shinier with apps like Bolt and Uber and Ride, popping up everywhere, and then bringing in brand new services like having the same Uber ride that would usually pick you up and take you somewhere else, instead go pick up a package that you have and deliver it to you. So it's a
Yeah.
small little innovations and things like that, switches of how services are used like that really keep this type of tech, really full circle in the market, So yeah,
Well,
that's really interesting. Yeah.
there's a bit of a negative impact here with the existing competitor, Waymo, and if all of you can agree with me, some percent of the market share has dropped with these FSD developments, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
Referencing what Abzi was saying, it is a fine line because there are parts of our lives and mobility that still require a human component, right? And as I said, like
right.
this will augment us. It can augment traffic controllers or urban designers. But I think what makes the system work, um, wait, what makes the system work, my lights just went out. But I'll fix that later. Oh,
Oh, I think we lost John over there.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Let's have a look here. Yeah, it seems that
Sorry.
it's got a little bit of connection issues. Yeah, it's all right though.
Sorry.
Not a problem.
So, taking off on John's point here, yes, of course, it is an augmented extension of human reality, and it's something exciting towards looking to the future as a building block that basically interconnects and meshes out various aspects of humanity in all its granular forms. FSD and automated self-driving will basically become the building block of smart cities. And this is the innovation field that we're looking into the future. We have NEOM, we have the Line in Saudi Arabia, in the United Arab Emirates. We have the Oval in China coming up very quickly. And one of the most important aspects is the automated transportation with decentralized pathways. So you can't drive on automated pathways and basically that first of all it enhances security, enhances safety within itself and efficiency in transportation. So if let's say at the point of a year from now, 2 years from now, we can accumulate enough data to pre-process and train to upgrade our models, we'll be living in a fully autonomous city by the age of 2030, right?
And to be honest with you, this is a very interesting point because you actually coupled it with a lot more that humanity has to offer for innovation and engineering. And that's
That's right.
architecture, man. Like forget our cars and how we get around. Like that's just one small piece of the well, it's a good chunk, but it's not the entire chunk, right? The architecture around us and where we live and how
Yeah.
we live and how we walk and our usual paths that we do take. I mean, this all
Mm.
makes a very giant, huge difference, right? Imagine if we just had a cyberpunk featured, futuristic city. We're looking at the type of efficiency where now instead of getting on a car and going from point A to point B, like the rest of humanity would, we're looking at a bunch of elevators and flying escalators or however that would work. Basically technology in the general eye of the public for architecture that makes it useful to us. Maybe garbage
That is
cans in the
true.
most unusual spots that we would, never think of. But the truth is, you may end up in that unusual spot with a little bit of litter in your hand. You could throw it somewhere, and there'd be a garbage can, right? There could be garbage cans in the floors. Yeah, that's a kind of a long take. But the point is that having a modern city like that, a very heavily modern inspired with tech, is actually really, really, really interesting. Like I feel like it almost takes the laziness out of me to try and automate my life. While if I knew I could physically walk around and get all these things done for me, I would actually choose to physically walk around. Actually, I would actually choose in that case of a city that really utilizes tech to and to an unbearable degree. I think that would not annoy me. I think that would actually please me a lot more.
Well, it's a psychology factor, and welcome, John. We kind of lost you there a little bit, but yeah, we're just trying to dissect this topic a little deeper. And right now, we're looking at teleporting trash cans, as Abhishek just mentioned a few minutes ago. But yeah, that's the concept you're mentioning right now, man. I mean, there is no way on earth you would have trash cans move itself and automatically disappear where you are unless it's teleportation, and that's time travel, right? So
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel that to answer this, I have to give a little more background on what I do, because, like I said, I'm trained as a designer, but I'm focusing on service design, right? Looking at systems in their entirety. So it can be a whole city, a whole supply chain. It could even be just a smaller system, like how to run a urban mobility app, right? There's a lot of design that intersects that. There's the UX, user experience design of the interface, of how people interact with the service itself. Not too interested in that. Then there's the design of the bikes themselves, if they run well, if they're ergonomic. That's product design. I know how to do that, but I'm not going in there either. I'm focused on the system as a whole, right? So, like, where do you put the bikes? Where do people stop the most? There's a lot of behavior involved. How to talk to maybe city council, make sure that they're in on it. How do you change the batteries? Who takes care of that? Very logistical aspect.
Absolutely.
And even though I'm trained as a designer and have all these methodologies, I also majored in business, right? So, like, there is this element of really logistical, taking everything, how to make sure a business idea is sustainable, that it can generate revenue to live forever, or at least grow to the point where you want it to. And so all of these really tie into what you're saying, right? So, like, a city is the perfect example of this, because it's almost alive. It's a living ecosystem. And here you're augmenting it with technology, but you don't have to forget what made the city the city. And what made the city is that people came together to be close to each other, to have the services and goods close to them. And then there is a social fabric that generated there. And if you're not incentivizing people to uphold this social fabric, then the interaction and the social contract that kind of brings it together might fall apart. It's very interesting to see, because everything works on incentives. You're talking about how, like, if your city had all of this technology incorporated in it, you would choose to walk regardless. And when we're doing market analysis, it's sometimes easier to ask people what they have been doing, like what's your actual behavior. Because if I put you in a utopia, then you can imagine yourself doing all of these things, but that might not reflect how you would actually behave, because in that system maybe you're not incentivized to walk. Maybe the way that the system is set up, you're losing time. It's an opportunity cost. So what I think, and what this fine line that I was saying before my power went out, that we have to tread, is making sure that people are still at the center of this, and that you're incentivizing still this social fabric. Because, I don't know, for example, you might say that I think automating transport is a very easy example of, like, where this will probably not
Yeah.
go wrong because transport is already like very technological. It's not like there's an anthropological base. We don't have an innate, and
It's a key foundation.
it's innate to walk, but for issues of health and traffic and congestion, if you're, for example, what kind of transport are you automating? Because if you're incentivizing everyone to get their own self-driving car, then these cars aren't going to drive anywhere because they're all going to be stuck in traffic, for example. So,
Well, there's a small aspect there, streamlining basically, finding the most efficient path. And if that as well is regulated well, I believe it will be cancelled out, right?
I totally agree. And that's where another issue of interoperability comes in. And there's a kind of iffy aspect of regulations because, I mean, if you have Tesla on one side and Waymo on the other, and they're all running on their own system, these cars might not recognize each other. So if you saturate the market, then and you don't have interoperability, these cars won't recognize each other. So if you do go in the direction of automating individualized transport, and there is this potential for streamlining, you have to be careful and make sure that they're communicating, that these machines are recognizing one another, and they run on the same server perhaps, or use the same language. And right now, a lot of services are very siloed, and they can't really talk to each other. Not only cars, but even just like iOS and Android, right? Like if you told us 500 years ago that the world would be dominated by these two huge operating systems that can't talk to each, it sounds out of science fiction, right? But it's another element. And how do you decide that? Do the companies come together and find a common contract, or does that have to be regulated? So this is another interesting debate about how city council and the institutions might come into regulate it. And if they over-regulate, then you stifle innovation and nothing's going to get done. And you get stuck in this limbo where you're just solving some problems but creating others, right? So we have to make sure that we're doing it mindfully, really.
So it seems to be a lot more of a culture change, actually, that's very heavily required. Yeah, because it is true. If for an example, we had a design where a wall would turn into a stack of stairs. It's a very long example, very far example. But the truth about it is,
that is advanced morphing, man. Don't go there.
no, wait, hold on, bro. We're not doing the Matrix right now. We're not going into advanced morphing. No. Okay, come on, guys. You seriously haven't been keeping up with China? I can't believe it, bro. We look.
No, I have, and most of the morphability concepts came from them, and the Mahjong puzzles are the point of inspiration. But no, not right now. We're not ready for that. Yeah.
Okay, look, at least let me finish my point. Okay, my point is, to say what John said, it is true. A lot of the tech that we would have, that we would be seeing it as giving, a lot more of an automated view on things. And obviously, we'd be seeing it as, okay, that's going to cut the waiting lines. I can see how the waiting lines would get longer. Actually, there's a lot that could go wrong with just solely tech running an entire.
Well, I believe building off of John's concept there is that in order to tackle this interoperability wall, is to fully decentralize everything, right? In terms of it being self-dependent, because if you take into aspect an example of us human beings, when we learn to walk, we learn to detect obstacles on our own. We don't need to be centralized to be told, hey, there's an obstacle, avoid that, or like a central traffic light. Otherwise, it would have been a world of chaos and a lot of lights, red, green, and yellow. So in that case matter, Tesla has been one of the 4 pioneers in this, in enhancing the FSD computer vision cameras to independently detect obstacles, regardless of where they are, who they are, and what. And in terms of systems, I believe in resource consumption, it's actually much more efficient, because if you do centralize and have like a governance on top of it, it's then still deemed vulnerable to attacks. So relatively speaking, it will take even more time. It would have been us repeating the same notion all over again, where we have like a central government and then we have to be dependent on it, and if it's not operating, things get stuck. So
Yeah.
I'm totally on that decentralization because it's the most organic and fluid way of learning. It's how we are decentralized. We're not a hive mind yet. We're not a singularity. But that's what's allowed us to go out and then come back and share knowledge, share ideas. I think machines are doing that really well now, as in like learning on themselves. I have to read up more on how they communicate among themselves, because if of course they speak the same language, but that might not be obvious. And
Yeah, yeah. Can you imagine the feats of engineering that would have to occur in order to achieve such a thing? Because if it's smart cities, then again, man, it will take a lot of work just to integrate rather than build, right?
Yeah, it would take a lot more work on integration, yeah, before even building anything.
for a city, sorry. Also, I'm shifting my view because I like talking to you guys, but then I have to remember that I should be looking there. So sorry about that while you're editing. But when you mention cities, I like to use the example. Something else that I was taught in university is this concept of biomimicry. Biomimicry is using, instead of finding a problem and you answering the solution, you sort of look to nature, to how nature has solved that problem, because nature has been around for so long, it's so complex, and it's really the master optimizer. Nature has iterated thousands of times. It knows the most efficient path. It knows what the best way to respond to a given environment. And so using biomimicry in design can provide you with a lot of answers that are really cutting edge, really innovative, and that you just, as a human, you don't have the capacity to iterate as much. Maybe once we start incorporating artificial intelligence, which can do it at a much faster rate, but then you have to model the environment in computers. We're still very far from that. But for biomimicry, when I apply that to cities, I always see them as a body, because it's a bunch of cells coming together, communicating, and what AI has the capacity to do is to give that body a sort of awareness. It connects everything and it knows what's going on where. So I think maybe using, investigating how the human brain works, or how a certain body works, or how a forest with all its mycelium network under the trees works, will give a very good blueprint to how maybe certain processes within urban design can be optimized with this technology. I think that's something to look at.
Man. Yeah, that is exceptional actually, because if you look at most of the projects right now being built that are more futuristic and environmental friendly are an exact implementation of biology in mimicry. If we take an example of the line, right? The line is just a congested city in one straight line, basically, with the height of the Empire State Building a few meters above, if you may. But then it's redefined human living and autonomicity at the most efficient rates, where we utilize less space in the world and we get most done. So if you look at the structure of the line, they haven't really revealed like the interiors in terms of sections, categories, and places that refer to a certain context which you can do something, right? But then I do believe in terms of automating transportation just as its basis, there's a lot there, that will come into just, the least path used with less friction and so forth. So a lot of hoverboards, a lot of drones, a lot of, automated small package, large package. It's like now we're going to live in a computer program, if you may. So, yeah.
Did you see, you reminded me, a very good example of biomimicry for urban planning Did you see it was researchers in Tokyo? They mapped out the city and made it like a little maze, and put food, some just like glucose or whatever at the most, like at the focal points of population on that map, and then they put a mushroom and mycelium on that map and let it grow, and so it would basically optimize the path to the food, and if you let it grow, it would reach these points of what would represent human density on its own. And basically what they got at the end of it was pretty much the map of the Tokyo metro system, because they had managed. Yeah, they had.
That is really goddamn innovative for problem solving. Holy cow!
Because it would know. It knows where to go, how to find the fastest and shortest way there, and it traced it out for them. And now all they have to do is get it and implement. So I think that's really interesting. And if we ever do manage to sort of, I don't know, we're very far from that. The next step is quantum computing, but sort of an organic computer. Yeah, I mean, we've struggled to put this together because of the time differences, and we have very different schedules. I mean, you guys, this is part of your daily operations, but I still have to head to class in the mornings and have a lot of projects. But I mean, well, for example, I mean, I said I'm into service design, but I also have some. It's kind of you can't see. I made a lamp.
Very nice. Have a look.
This is a.
That's really cool. It's like a giant shell. Holy cow. Second interlude, we come back with you guys, John, Alex, and Abhishek. And we're on for a bit more than just self-driving cars and houses that open themselves for you.
Teleporting trash cans.
Yeah,
and walls that turn into stairs.
That too. That just a couple of meters in front of the teleportation. We're there now. We're back actually on the entire chip ordeal with the things and the people that eat burgers, all the way from the east to the west. We're looking at the entire sanctions issue with America and China. Now they're actually trying. America are trying to limit the people in China that are able to get these chips. Legitimately. Like I don't really know. Like some pirate thing is going on, bro. These guys have like miniature boats. They're on their way to steal hundreds of $50,000 worth of chips, man. I don't know how the hell that works. All right, Huang, goddamn it, Jensen. You should have done something better about protecting these goddamn things. You know what I mean? But basically, the U.S. have input sanctions towards all the chip makers in America, or at least the ones that are based in America. That makes them a whole lot harder to move the chips around anywhere inside or out. That's right, inside as well. I don't really know.
Insider story. China is already removing everything manufactured by the United States in terms of tech in the telecom companies.
Okay, yeah. So whatever they walked along.
Everything else.
Yeah, well, you stole from us first. Look, man. Let me tell you, you can steal and walk along. It's all well, but it's not like you'll be able to get back at the original technology. You know what I'm saying? You feel what I
I
mean?
think
I
the
mean,
Chinese would do that if they're comfortable with what they already have, and they know that okay, from here on out, the Americans can't beat us. And hey, we're just speaking the battle for innovation and dominance, basically.
okay, okay. So we can make the argument that whatever they have is running their fleet is either theirs or the Americans. And if it is Americans, we know how to power it, basically normal power. If it's theirs, God knows what the hell alien technology they've put in place for that damn chip to run. But basically, that now that the U.S. government has put in all these sort of sanctions, exporting, really targeting exporting here, they're doing their best to limit whatever China can, or rather China's overall access to these chips, even globally, you know.
Yeah. John,
So
out of your retrospect, do you smell World War III coming anytime soon?
People are very pessimistic. I don't think so, because not anytime soon. You'd have to have the U.S. pull out of Ukraine, which apparently it just did last night. But I think that's a hot war that's going on that has the most potential to devolve. World War III implies that it's blocks of countries fighting each other. I think the traditional alliances have sort of broken over the past month, and if the US is not willing to defend its traditional allies, then it won't be a world war, because I don't think the current US administration has any interest in getting involved in any hot war at the moment. If anything, it would initiate a new one, but we're not there yet. And so, because World War III traditionally is what Russia and China against the US and Europe. Well, right now, Trump and Putin are the best of friends, so that they're not going to be fighting.
So they say. So they say. I mean, we can't be so sure, but that's news for you. So yeah.
They might not get along. I personally don't think Trump has any incentive, at least on paper, to appease Putin. There's nothing that he can get out of it unless there's something behind the scenes, which I think there's a lot of conspiracy theories. Most of them are probably all of them aren't true, but I think there is no interest for the US to get involved in any kind of war, and without the US, it won't be a world war. And that's my take on it at the moment. But he's very irrational man. I don't know who could he drag into it, because unless it happens in the South China Sea, US facing off against China. But again, I think China itself has been the biggest beneficiary of the rules-based international order. The Chinese economic miracle came after it joined the international institutions and started trading freely, even though its system is one of state capitalism and it's exploiting its own people. Like, it's still trading like a capitalist nation. And so if you shut that off, if you cut them off,
I don't think that will ever change.
No, exactly. It's very integrated, and not only is it reliant on the rest of the world to export and make revenue, but it's geographically very poor in natural resources, and they import a lot of food because they moved all of their, well, not all, clearly, like they still have a big capacity in agriculture, but they don't have enough to feed the population, and they rely on global markets. And they know that the second that they try something risky, if the kind of sanctions that were applied on Russia were applied in China, there would be no China. So in that sense, in terms of incentives, I don't see it coming anytime soon. But again, Trump is soon going to be the oldest president. He will outdo, and he's already living in his own world. So if that gets even more accentuated, who knows what kind of orders he's going to be giving. And everyone who's sworn an oath of loyalty to him and doesn't have an ounce of self-critical thought. They just play the tune. They march to the tune, and that's a very dangerous thing to have. But I don't see it.
Yeah.
If anything, economic warfare, which is the 21st century warfare. I mean, he can do a lot of damage without shooting a single gun. He can ruin the lives of millions. And it's also, I mean, the economists say people in the US are also going to suffer the consequences. I don't know how he expects to mitigate that. I don't know if he expects to be re-elected, him or Vance. A lot of Republicans already have buyer's regret, thinking that Trump turned on them. A lot of people relying on public services that Musk has been cutting. A lot of government workers who are Republicans and got fired. They're saying this is not what they voted for. So we'll have to see how that plays out. It's just going to be a very rocky time in the world.
Well, ultimately speaking, I think we're nearing the point of intersection here, and in terms of just general human evolution and psychological advancement, and it's that Darwin theory, right? Again, it's happening, Darwin, Mendel, and so forth. So I think the latter will just distinctivize itself from the majority and survive if that's the case. But I don't think it will get there. And if we pull some strings and work together, hey, we might develop something much better.
I'm very excited about that. I think, well, now it's like they're saying the quiet part out loud now.
Exactly.
Because the behavior has been...
You literally quoted words right out of President Obama just recently, stating about the current state of the democracy in the United States and the House of Congress and everything else.
Yeah, it's curious. They give because you have the title of president for life. Once you've been president, you might not be in office, but Obama is still President Obama. You still have President Clinton, President Bush, and they're briefed on everything, so they know what's going on in the world. They know what's going on in the White House. If they're not sounding the alarm bells, it means the talk might change, but the way of doing things is pretty much the same. And before the United States used coercive measures, they just did it quietly. They jumbled up the language. They used economic means to pressure other people. And it's not the good old-fashioned imperialism, which Russia is trying to do by conquering another country. They just know there's other ways of controlling. But now it seems Trump is saying the quiet part out loud, and he's all out on American imperialism and supremacy. So if that flips the tide, I think there's a very good opportunity for at least Europe to look elsewhere for partners. I think, well, the European Union already has very close ties with ASEAN in Southeast Asia, the East African community, India, Brazil, just all of Mercosur right now. Milei that's a bit in the air, but if Europe really wants to defend the multilateral system, we've been stagnant ever since the global financial crisis. Everyone else is catching up.
True.
And I think it's leveled the playing field. And if we can all come together against a common threat, then if that's what it takes, then maybe it's a good thing.
I mean, if we're basically pointing at aliens as the common thread, then it would have to wait a long time. But
it was funny.
Aliens are us.
I was thinking about that because it seems like in all the movies, it's like aliens that unite the Earth. They come down with their force and they force.
It's always their problem. Yeah.
But we're not gonna get aliens. But the first week of Trump, when he was already deporting migrants in planes, he sent some to Colombia. And the president of Colombia was like, we're not going to take them. And then Trump came down on Colombia like aliens would. He said, we're going to slap all these tariffs on you, and just like a huge show of force, complete imbalance of power. And Colombia said, we accept all your terms. We accept all your terms and we'll do whatever you say. That's kind of like alien behavior. So if the aliens are the Trump administration, then I don't know. At least a lot of people in Europe are worried about having lost an ally. Again, this might only be 4 years, and the state of US democracy might be questioned, but I think it's still robust enough for him not to seek another term. The question is, like, if the American people still think that this is a good idea and vote for Vance or Don Jr. or whoever comes next, and there's no break from the chaos, then people might, I don't know. I feel like a lot of global leaders are just, their strategy right now is to wait it out, to weather out the storm, to just hold on, try not to upset him too much until he's gone, because one day he'll be gone.
Yeah.
He might not. It might be someone else who's the same. It might be someone else who's worse. And if the US has been doing this through other means, then maybe it's time to have someone else.
I definitely agree with you.
Geopolitically, because that's just the government. A lot of Americans disagree. A lot of Americans are still doing it's still the most innovative country on earth, technologically, socially. There's a lot of civic movements and culture that's happening, but we'll see. Right now, it's just too uncertain.
I have to agree, man. I have to agree that democracy does things to a person. Freedom.
So it kind of does specify a little bit on where these sanctions came from, the reasoning behind it and the motive to drive it. But eventually, I do think that this chess game that Trump just pulled off might play off well for the smart ones, basically just isolating themselves from the noise and actually making something happen. So in terms of AGI development, just general innovation, general automation, there's strides, right? There's strides, and we're trying to interconnect the dots to build a stronger foundation for the future. I don't know. What do you think will be the future of AGI in China with the new smart cities project that's coming up also? Abhishek?
What do I think the what exactly?
The future might be with the new smart city project coming up in China.
Well, first, to be honest with you, man, with all these smart city projects, I
There's
just
another
really
one in
want
Tokyo as well.
to see them get completed. Like, I don't know the one in Tokyo, but I just want to see them get completed first, right? Because building tech and incorporating it into structures like where you're going to live, structures themselves need to be very sound, and the materials they use often have to have a lot of sciences involved, like tensile strength, a pushing strength or a pulling strength. And all of this comes into play overall if you have tech, in between all of these materials, because they could get damaged as such, in different ways. But the thing about these smart cities is that I just haven't really seen them, get built as such, and I think it would be interesting for it to come up. But before I even have anything to say about it, I just want to see one happen, I just want to see one come up first. Right? There's just so much of material science that goes on with these things, and then now putting it all together with technology just becomes that much harder.
Yeah.
So really, my perspective on all of this is let it get built first. That's for sure. I because I also take away from what everyone else has said about really interesting ideas like this. All of us have a lot of mixed thoughts, right? And all of us think that to some degree we would feel the way that we'd feel about these things. But the truth is, when they're there in front of our face and we gotta use them, it's a different ordeal. Just to some degree, it's a different ordeal. So I feel that before they even come, to have any sort of ranking perspective on how well this city would be and how good it sounds, I think it should just be built first. I think that's the first challenge for sure, to build it, and then the second is definitely regulating it, because it's not like China are animals or anything like that, but I would have to say that there'd be different rules and laws in a lot
Oh
more
yeah.
technologically advanced city
Oh yeah.
than
I
normal one.
mean, smart cities will operate totally differently in terms of even the economic
Yeah,
value
I mean,
it perceives. Because
absolutely.
at the end of the day, man, we're looking here at. We mentioned this before, and John, I think you'd agree with me that data is going to become the point of incentives and economic value instead of money on later future, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the new gold rush, kind of. It's a new resource, but it's not even a resource. It's also a means of production. It's a type of capital. No, it's a new means of production which you need to produce AI models to inform decisions, right? That's why it makes sense that China is spearheading this smart city movement, because they're collecting so much data on their own citizens. And I mean, the implications of a smart city is what, like surveillance or even, because that's like the alternative model, like for, let's say, since the 90s, the model has been, well, you have a liberal democracy where you ask people what they want, and they tell you. It's not like elections aren't only for people to vote who they want. It's for the people who get elected to sort of get a read on what people want. Because once you're elected, you don't only do what you say you're going to do, like you've been chosen as a manager, but then you have to go out and manage, and the situation will change. And having this information on how people feel and what people want, it allows you to make decisions. It's a data gathering system, right? But now the Chinese are like, no, we're not going to ask people. We're going to find out. We're going to look at them constantly, and we're going to know better than they do what they want. So that's the antithesis, kind of. It's saying people don't actually know what they want. Why ask them? We're going to find out and then give them what they truly actually want. It's a bit patronizing. A lot of countries seem to think it works. But that's what it is. It's a different way of obtaining data. So it's these two systems that are confronting each other at the moment. Which is why, again, it informs the reason between these chip restrictions and trade wars, because right now the two nodes of data is the Chinese Communist Party. They have a lot of data on their citizens, and then there is Silicon Valley, which has a lot of data on everyone who uses their products. So these two forces are the best positioned at the moment to massively train large language models to develop AI technology, because they have the data. So it makes sense that the US, any administration, Biden, Trump 1, Trump 2, they're all sanctioning China because they know that they've hit gold, and they have as much, if not more, raw data than them. And no other country, no other force, because the European Union doesn't have this. It's a cloud capital, as it's been described, right? Cloud capital. And no one else has it, because the Europeans, they've been using American products. So their data is in the hands of Meta and Amazon. And so I think, in order for a truly smart city and this decentralization that we were talking about in the beginning, you have to have a conversation on who owns this data and who's generating this data. Because I don't know, like if we really want smart cities in Europe, that means that people will have to, give a lot of information. They might not be willing to do so, or they might not be willing to do so under the current rules. I think you might need to redefine the ownership of this data. Maybe AI, you can have a sort of shareholder approach to it. Like however much data you put into it is however much you own it, and however much you can get dividends. You might set up a dividend system where, I don't know, I don't think Musk is going to do this, but just as an example, like Grok pays you however much it makes, or the smart city however much it makes in revenue through, I don't know, parking tickets. Like if your data has been used to develop a parking ticket AI, then however much revenue is generated from that, maybe part can go back to you. Or maybe if data is the new money and you're not putting in money, you're putting in data, maybe you can get some data back. Maybe we can find this way for it to be, again, what I was saying, like the whole supply chain, the whole system to be airtight and internalize all of these externalities that have been created by just not considering the full implications of things.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Of course, later on, there are a lot of granular advancements apart from the dividends, and there is basically value analysis depending on the context and the relationship to what it's supposed to do. And it will basically open up new doors to further advance out into, exteriors such as space and stuff. So there's a lot of possibilities. And as of now, if we give it a good case scenario, an example, whatever that's collected in space as data would be most valuable to Tesla, to NASA, and all these pioneer agencies, in the world, and whatever data that they extract from you and the value that they propagate would be your incentive in return. So you're totally right. Abhishek, what do you think?
No, I have nothing to say, but I'm going to have to agree, guys. Like this is we spanned off quite far, but everything has been factual statements so far, man. Honestly.
Right. Okay. What do you think? We close off?
Maybe, man, we're gonna have you join the thing. Seriously, no, thank you very much, John, for joining us today. It's been absolutely fantastic having you on. You have very, very insightful explanations to a lot of problems that we came across throughout this episode today. So, thank you very much for being on here with us today. We're really, really happy to have you on here.
Thank you. I hope I was articulate. It's a lot of ideas cooking in my head, and I mean, thank you for giving me a chance to lay them out. The more I talk about this, the better I get at it, So next time,
yeah, that's right.
I'll be even better.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll be more articulate,
Yeah.
and I should write some of these things down. Because again, and thank you for nudging me in the right direction. I mean, it's been a great moderator, and I didn't think originally, I'm gonna be honest, I was a bit skeptical about the agenda, because I was like, this has nothing to do with my expertise, right? But then the cities came out, the global regulations, comparing different parts of the world, and I mean, we sort of went off topic a few times, but it all tied together very nicely. So I really appreciate it. I had a great time, and looking forward to the episode coming out. Best of luck with editing.
Absolutely. Good luck with the editing, Alex, and we will be looking forward to having you on the next episode, John, and continue us from there. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been ScorCast Week 7, and as always, we love you guys, man. Have a nice one.
Thank you.